Call the member Materia Toure.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. I want to first congratulate Sue Moroney on this bill. I don't think I've spoken on it yet during its passage through the House, and for her persistence over nearly 2.5 years in ushering this bill through the House. And I do strongly urge the National Party to continue to support this bill. It is, to support this bill, because it goes to the fundamental premise of what is the purpose of this Parliament, what is the purpose of government. One of the core purposes is to take the best possible care of our most vulnerable citizens. And there's nobody in this House who would disagree that children, particularly the youngest babies, the newborn babies, are our most vulnerable citizens, and that they deserve our full attention. Interestingly enough, just today, Alfred Nuttall and myself, Alfred from the National Party, hosted the Big Picture art exhibition, which is currently open in the level 1 of Bowen House for members who haven't seen it yet, which is a series of artworks, creative works by children talking about issues like poverty, issues like housing, the income issues that they and their families face. And we're talking tonight about how to support children and families better. Well, these children have got some very clear views about what is needed to make sure that their lives and the lives of other children that they know and their families, including their little brothers and sisters, have a better life. And it's a great challenge for parliamentarians to go and have a look at that exhibition, to read the stories that the children have prepared as part of their artworks, and come back to this House with a renewed sense of commitment to protecting our most vulnerable citizens, especially our littlest babies. It is distressing that National is not committed to that, and I do invite them to go and engage with that Big Picture exhibition. Because as much as National talks about prudent financial management and is looking to exercise its financial veto, the fact is that they know, as we all do, that investment in families when babies are very little, newborn babies, is a sound investment in our future. It is a sound social investment, it is a sound financial investment. And that is what Sue Moroney's bill is asking us to make. A sound financial and social investment in our most vulnerable citizens so that they have the best chance of the best possible life. And surely that is what our job is here. It's about putting kids, and in this case, as I say, the littlest babies first. And it will cost a little bit of money. Some have said half of the cost of the flag referendum. It's not that expensive in the context of a government budget, but it will make a huge difference to the lives of those families, of those littlest babies. And frankly, returns to us in significant numbers. We know that child poverty, for example, costs this country around $8 billion a year in catch-up costs. Well, just $6 million, I understand, Sue Moroney, something like that, yes. Investment in families now could save hundreds of millions of dollars in the future. So why wouldn't you consider that financial prudent management? So the clause 4 really in Sue Moroney's bill really does set out very clearly not just the purpose of the bill in a technical sense, but the principle behind the bill, which, as I've been talking about, is about how we best protect our most vulnerable citizens, our littlest babies. And frankly, Sir, I don't think we can afford not to take this action. We need to make sure that families have the best possible chance when their babies are young and when they are the families themselves are most vulnerable. Those of you who have looked at the Children's Commissioner's report on solutions to child poverty will see their recommendation for a form of child payment changes the focus from what is, people generally consider is the high costs of older kids, cheaper costs of little kids, and we have a working for families kind of structure that gives more money as children get older. But their analysis, based on significant research and very credible research, is that young families face the highest costs when their babies are little. And that's because they have the least capacity to be able to maximise their financial circumstances. This is when they most need access to decent paid parental leave so that they can take the best possible care of their children at a time when they are the most constrained. So even in the Solutions to Child Poverty report from the Children's Commissioner's Expert Advisory Group, they describe in a very detailed way the importance. Mr Chair?
Materia Toure.
Thank you, Mr Chair. They describe in a very detailed and very analytical way why it is important that we invest more at the time when babies are littlest. And this is, they were suggesting a child payment of various kinds that was universal at first instance when babies were little and then became more targeted as the children grew. That was one model of providing financial assistance to these families. Sue Moroney's bill is another excellent model that does the same thing. And so it does leave us with a whole range of options on how we can best support families and their babies at a time of their highest vulnerability, which is why the Green Party supports this legislation from Sue Moroney. I would say, Mr Speaker, that National actually agrees with the principle. National clearly agrees with the principle that investing in families when babies are little is a good idea. They have demonstrated that by continuing with paid parental leave when they came into government, and of course with their intention to extend by just a few weeks paid parental leave over the next few years. So the principle we are talking about that's in the purpose clause of this legislation is supported across the House. Everybody agrees that paid parental leave is a good idea. Everybody agrees that these families need some kind of financial support when their babies are very little. But for some reason, National simply will not invest what is needed to improve the lives of these families, and especially those of the ones who miss out. And I just want to take a few minutes to talk about the ones who miss out. One of the issues that we have with paid parental leave, both in terms of the extension of time but also in the amount of money that families are able to access, is that those families who are on the lowest incomes, working families on the lowest incomes, who would be eligible for paid parental leave, find it very difficult to take because they cannot afford the reduction in income. Neither can they afford to take, if they can afford to take it at all, they certainly can't take it for very long because the amounts are simply too low. There is a whole nother group of families who are completely excluded from the alternative, which is the parental tax credit, because that is the alternative for some of these working families. But there's a whole series of number of working families who are excluded from the parental tax credit because they are also in part dependent on a welfare benefit. So there is a significant group of families who are working, who are in paid employment, who also are in receipt of welfare payment for whatever reason. And they are not they are not able to afford to take paid parental leave, and they're not entitled to the parental tax credit. Those families tend to be the ones who are on the very lowest incomes. There yet again is another group of families, and that is beneficiary families who are not in paid work, who do not have access to either, and who are completely bereft of the support. It does beg the question, why is it that these babies over here are entitled to some form of largesse that National supports? They're quite happy for paid parental leave to some extent. These babies over here are entitled to a bit of additional support from the state when they're young and vulnerable and their families are most in need, but these babies over here are not. There is a gap. Thank you, there is a principle and a logical gap in which a whole range of families who are at the very lowest incomes, who have the most need of help, whose babies are the most likely to suffer from the effects of poverty, who miss out in some form from the range of services, paid parental leave, parental tax credit that we have available. So there is some commitment from National to some parts of the principle that says our most vulnerable citizens deserve our greatest commitment. But there are too many gaps that mean too many of our children are falling through them. And we know that one baby a week dies in this country from poverty-related conditions. One baby a week dies from poverty-related conditions in this country. So even to the extent that this bill deals with one part of the principle around paid parental leave and its extension, and that is a good thing, that is, at least provides some additional assistance to the families who are vulnerable. But we need to make sure that when we are investing in the principle, which is that vulnerable children deserve our greatest commitment, that we are committing to that principle without judgment of the kind of work that a family is undertaking, without judgment to the kind of... Mr Chair?
The Honourable Anne Tolley.